I could steer. Oh, the Great Salt Lake.
Okay, welcome to the show. Tonight or this week's show, we're talking to
Chris
John.
Stewart
Well, we're talking to Chris Stewart
and Jay Bread.
and Jay Bread. We're going to lead off with Jay Bread. His name's John. He is he's doing some positive things for the community during this time of kind of chaos.
He is being an outstanding moral citizen of the Tooele County.
Yes, he is. Nice guy, too. Very nice guy. His wife's a lovely lady. And we're very thankful they were, they had time and the willingness to come on. And let's all reach out, throw them some support. And then we talked to Chris Stewart. And the subject of that is, of course, coronavirus or COVID-19 or whatever other names people
The Wuhan virus is what I like to refer to it as.
The Wuhan virus.
It's point of origin.
Yeah. As far as we know, it is. I don't care what people call it. It's it hasn't really struck our area yet.
I think we got like 9-10 confirmed positive cases as of today. And today is what, April 3rd?
And we've got one hospitalization from Grantsville that I know of. I don't know about the rest. And hopefully it doesn't, hit us too hard. I'm hoping that these extreme measures
Have a good effect.
at
Level
least stifle that.
What do they say? Level the curve, I think, is the terminology.
Yes, but we talked with him about COVID. We talked with him about the reaction economically that we may suffer. And we also talk a little bit about the bill that was just passed, regardless of how you feel about that. A breath needs to be taken. That is the largest bill that has ever been passed by any government in the history of the world. That is a huge bill. Or to sound like Trump, tremendous. But yeah, so sit back and enjoy the show. All right, we're here with Breadman. John, so you've got an interesting thing going on. Why don't you tell us what you got going on here in Tooele?
Well, with everything going on with COVID and everything, things have gotten kind of crazy. Everybody knows the condition that the stores are in and how they've gotten wiped out. There's a lot of people that are not able to work at the time, kids out of school, things like that. And it's really impressed me.
Come on, a little closer to the mic.
Sorry about that.
You can move the mic closer to you if that's more comfortable.
It's really impressed me seeing the community reach out and offer help to each other. And I was kind of thinking, there's what can I do? And one of the things that just kind of came back to me was when I was a lot younger, my grandfather taught me how to make bread. Mm-hmm. The old school way. He grew up during the Great Depression, and he would make batches of bread. That was a standard thing back then.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things he said was, sometimes you never knew if you're going to get meat or vegetables or whatever, but you could always get flour. And so, and some of my favorite childhood memories were making bread with him on weekends.
Very
and
nice.
Kind of just brought it all back to me. So, it kind of came together. I picked up some equipment, some older school, hand mix bread buckets, things like that. I can make about 24 loaves a day.
Really?
And
really
just depends on what people need. Yep.
Now, are people making requests to you, or like neighbors saying, "Hey, I've got a neighbor that could probably use some"?
Well, I set up a Facebook page, and I'm getting kind of a mix of both. I'm getting people that are reaching out saying, "Hey, I could really use some," and I've also been getting some that, "Hey, I've got family members or neighbors that don't, they could use it. I even got one request from a lady up in Spokane, Washington,
Really?
to take some loaves to someone down in Grantsville. So
Really? So she's reaching out from afar.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yep.
I like that. That's outstanding. Now, are you out of work because of COVID right now, or what's your situation?
Well, actually, I have two jobs.
Yeah.
My main job, I work from home anyway.
What do you
I
do?
have for about 10 years. I'm a network designer.
Oh, nice.
And then I also started working several days a week at a local grocery store, which that's become a full-time thing over these past couple of weeks.
I imagine.
So, yeah.
imagine.
So, and then that being considered essential,
Yeah.
there's not
Oh, yeah.
much of a threat of not being able to go to work there. So,
Yeah, if it gets to where they're shutting down grocery stores, that's when we need
yeah,
to get
we're really in
nervous.
trouble then.
Yeah. Well, I think it's awesome. So you just started. You're making about a dozen loaves a day. That's quite a bit.
I kind of do it based on demand. I don't bake every day. But I'll usually do most of my baking on a weekend, and then maybe a little bit during the week if I'm getting enough requests
The
for
need,
it.
yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I can do about 2 dozen loaves a day.
Okay.
Again, it's kind of old school bread bucket. Big stainless steel pail with a hand crank
Really?
dough hook in it, and
Real,
Yep.
probably getting real strong just stirring the dough. That stuff gets thick.
yeah. Well, and the fun thing about bread is, I'm not much of a baker in general. Baking tends to be very precise, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't take much to mess something up. But bread is something that's very forgiving. You can almost eyeball bread.
Really?
And that's actually my grandfather. Well, he was so good at it. The only thing he ever measured out was his yeast and sugar, and everything else he did just by
Just kind of
Dump and-
eyeball
yeah.
and what he went.
Do you use a yeast or do you use a starter?
No, I use yeast. I'm doing kind of a basic traditional white bread.
Okay.
I am working on making a sourdough starter. I've tried that a couple times in the past, and it hasn't
No.
worked too well.
Go ahead, take a look at this. And I got you a little present here because you're doing such an amazing thing for Tooele. And I myself am a sourdough connoisseur. So what I have here is a starter from about 500 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it's, go ahead and read the name of this starter.
The Bavarian Black Death starter,
Yeah,
circa 1633. Wow.
I thought this would be appropriate for today's Armageddon environment.
For sure. Wow.
So here's the Black Death starter, and I want you to give this a try.
Oh, I certainly will. Thank you.
I think you're going to enjoy that.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Now, I usually cook in a Dutch oven myself with a loaf in the Dutch oven. I like heat it up to about 500 degrees and then put it in the Dutch oven, score it, and then I'll let it sit there for about 25 minutes, and then I open the top and I let it sit in there for another 25 minutes. And usually I get pretty good results.
I'll give it a try. Give it
Yeah.
a try. So yeah, mine is it is a basic white bread. So yeast, sugar, water, oil, flour, a little bit of salt. That's it. Pretty simple.
How big are your loaves? Are they?
So mine are actually weighing out when I dough them out. It's about 1.25 pounds per loaf.
Okay. And how long do you think? Like, what's the average? I don't know, size wise.
Well, I can show you.
Yeah. Let's have a look.
Let's see that.
So this is about a standard loaf.
Okay. Yeah. And that'd last a person probably close to a week unless they're just eating bread.
Yeah. Well, it'll last my son about a half an hour.
Well, does he just like core the inside out?
He'll just tear into it and
Yeah.
just go. So.
Right.
But yeah, I try to give. One of the things I generally try to ask is how many people do you have? So I'll give. Usually, I don't mean to sound stingy, but I'll usually give about 2 to 4 loaves per person, just depending on how many people they've got in the house.
Yeah, well,
So-
you're providing assistance, but it is there is only you. It's not like you're unlimited on what you can bake.
Well, it's not exactly only me. I'm doing most of the bread work, but my wife helps me a lot in the background.
Yes,
She-
she's here as well.
Yep.
She's sitting
She's hiding behind me.
quietly.
Behind every great man is a great woman.
There you go.
Very true.
But she helps me with a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. She helps me run the Facebook page and helps me keep up with the contacts. She
Very
helps
good.
with some of the deliveries. I've got some other people. My son helps with deliveries sometimes.
Good.
Yeah, I've had a couple other people that have been willing to stop by here and there and pick up some loaves and run them to people. So
Yeah, and now we're going to put on the notes. We're going to put a link to your Facebook page. So
Okay.
that,
And you got a YouTube channel too. You provided some YouTube videos.
yeah. I had a couple people ask me about maybe doing some videos. So I'm not a actor or beautiful person or anything, but
okay.
but
Neither am I.
yeah, but I'm gonna I've put up a couple videos already. One of them kind of outlines what equipment I use and what supplies people would need, and then one that's a lot longer, but it's kind of a time cut of can't think of the right word. Sorry, of the whole process start to finish.
Very good.
I would love to see people start getting more back into doing this. This
Yeah.
used to be a very common thing in America's kitchens. And
self-sustainment.
yeah,
and-
and
yeah, definitely. Now we'll put links also to your YouTube, and maybe we'll go on there and steal a few minutes of what you got going on and just add to our video. here.
absolutely help yourselves. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll get that going, and definitely, I dig what you're doing.
well, thank
I
you.
like it. I like that you're helping people out, and hopefully, this gets some more eyes on you. Maybe some more assistance, and maybe some more people who need assistance, and hopefully, it doesn't overwhelm you. But
Hopefully.
yeah,
But I've already had a couple people that have been interested in starting to bake bread or starting to get back into baking bread. So I'm kind of excited. Like I
That's
said,
good, yeah.
I'd love to see that happen again.
that's the next step where you're teaching a man to fish.
Yep. Yep.
I think that's awesome, and I'm sure that baking your own bread, is more cost effective, especially over the long run, and over storage of the items. Whereas flour can store for a long time,
Right. Yeah.
Yeast can store for a long time. Of course, salt and sugar, we don't know how long those can store forever. But whereas when you just go out and buy bread, that's highly perishable.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, there's nothing like the way your house smells when you've baked a
Yeah.
batch of bread too.
I used to love it when my mom would cook bread.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And she did it all by hand. She didn't have a bread maker or mixer. She'd mix the dough on the table and press it into a tin.
Yeah. Yeah. So my preferred bread bucket actually was from 1904.
Really?
Yeah, and it was very much kind of a kitchen standard back then. They rated it as a 4-loaf thing,
Really?
based on a 2-pound loaf.
Yeah.
But it was what was really kind of amazing about it was they said that you could mix and you could knead and you could do everything right in the bucket.
And
And
you don't waste flour trying to
Right.
make the table so that it won't stick, adhere to the
right. So
table.
I still do a little bit of hand kneading, but yeah, it's a great little thing.
Oh yeah. Now this bucket, was this a hand me down or did you go out and find this?
No, I actually went out and was exploring on online to see if I could find one.
Really?
When I first started to look at the project, I found a newer, kind of a newer, more modern version.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of call it my hipster bucket. It's not really. I mean, it works, but
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's not really for kind of serious bread making. It's kind of more of the I want to make bread.
Oh, probably not as robust either.
Yeah, it's not as robust. The bucket tends to flex a little bit, and the yoke that holds the dough hook will come off. But this is kind of really an old school steel, stainless steel bucket. Really built to last. As a matter of fact, on the bottom of mine, you can see it's been repaired several times.
Really?
Yeah, feet fell off. You can clamp it to the table, and very similar to what my grandfather had. So
Nice.
Again, another thing that just really kind of brought me back to a childhood happiness.
Yeah. And that, I think that's awesome. Not only did you have this idea to help out the community, but you went out and you sought out to make it your own.
Right.
By finding the older equipment and finding, the recipe and carrying that on. I think that's awesome.
Sounds like it was a journey for you too. In your own way.
It was a really fast and furious journey, because it kind of the idea kind of came on like a Monday or Tuesday, and by Saturday I was making breads.
Really?
I should say by that Saturday I hopped on my motorcycle, went up to Clearfield to pick up the first bread bucket that I had found, and then got back down and started making bread.
I like it.
And then,
and what was your thoughts when he just told you, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and then next thing you know, he's just gathering this stuff?
Extremely proud of him.
That's
Extremely. Knowing what it means to him to be able to help, I'm like, okay, what can I do?
That's
What do you need help
awesome.
with?
And it's got to help bringing the family together, where it's a family affair.
Yeah, our son loved delivering until last night.
Oh,
We got a war story.
yeah, I was going to bring you guys I was going to make a fresh batch and bring it still warm and everything today, and then I got a panic call last night at about 11:30 at night that my son, who was helping a family move, was coming home, and the front wheel of the truck decided to just kind of go on its own way.
It's self-quarantined.
Yeah.
so did the lugs come off, or did the hub fail?
No, the lugs came off. The entire wheel just yeeted itself into nowhere. We have no idea where. They
Did
were
it
out.
bust your lugs?
One of them's busted, but I think just the nuts kind of came loose on it. I don't know.
What kind of truck is it?
It's a Toyota T100.
Okay.
This is what was left of the truck.
Is he okay?
Yeah, fortunately, everybody was okay. We spent some good quality time freezing on the side of the road until we got a tow truck there and everything.
And it got cold too. So you've got it at a shop right now.
No, it's sitting in front of the house.
Okay. Well, this is one thing I can help out with if you need. I know a little bit about mechanics, and I know a little bit about that model of truck and the way the brakes work.
Yeah,
But
might call you for some help on that.
Okay. Does it look like it damaged the?
From what we could tell, the rotor looks good.
Okay.
Probably the back plate might have gotten bent a little bit.
Yeah,
but that's
the dust
probably
plate.
And
not
the
a
ball
huge
joint.
deal. Ball joint, but I think it might have been having a ball joint problem before that. But
Okay.
but
And you don't know where the wheel is, huh?
no, we were searching for it last night, and then he and a friend went out and searched for it again today, and they couldn't find it. It was halfway in between Grantsville and here, so
Okay.
right by the Deseret Peak sign. So if anybody sees a wheel out there,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We'll make sure everyone keeps their eye open.
It's a good way to get the word out.
Yeah.
didn't mean to go on that tangent. Sorry, but
That's an expensive part, replacing a tire and a wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad he's okay.
yeah.
And he was probably going along at 60 miles an hour.
He was doing 60, started feeling it have problems, and he's learning to be a mechanic.
Uh-huh.
So he dropped the speed to make sure that if something happened, he didn't lose control.
Good.
So he had already dropped the cruise control, started dropping his speed. He was preparing for it. And he said he looked up because he thought he saw somebody walking. And that's when it hit the pavement, and he realized, oh, that was the tire.
Oh. Oh, man.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
there were many jokes made last night about that movie Rubber.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty scary. Lugs come loose and
Yeah, and he's only 18, so I mean, it was amazing to me that he maintained calm.
yeah, that's good.
Until he called me, and then all I got is mom, tire, front half of truck, by Walmart, and so everybody that we know that could was out trying to figure out where he was because his phone died.
Oh,
So
so
we
he
were
was
all trying to
his
find
phone's
storm.
breaking up on you,
Yeah.
and he said by Walmart. So
Yeah.
you guys are either way out there or way over there.
Yeah, we I was with one person, he was on his motorcycle
You're on your motorcycle last night.
in 25 degrees on his
Well,
motorcycle.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah, it's your kid.
I didn't know what
Yeah,
was going on with my son, and you know, yeah. I mean, I'll hop on the bike and go. At least it wasn't snowing.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was cold
Yeah, it was
last
chilly
night.
last
It was
night.
cold this
Yes, it
morning
was.
too.
So we were heading out to the person I was with. We were heading out to Walmart DC, thinking maybe out there because we know where the family was moving. We're thinking maybe somewhere out there. And he said, okay, you know, he called me and he said, okay, I'm going to go this way. I'll call you if I find him. I said, okay, I'll call you if we find him. And he called and said, hey, he's back here by the Deseret Peak sign. And when we drove by the sign, we saw a white truck. We could not see my truck. It's actually my truck, but yeah.
Yeah.
Could not see my truck. We saw a white truck sitting there, so we didn't stop.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it is good that he's okay.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's the most important thing. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went into mom mode. That's the first thing I said to him is, are you okay? Are you bruised? Are you injured? And then I hugged him for probably about 20 minutes.
Yeah. So he's going, Mom, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah, Mom,
Yeah.
my friends are here now.
Yeah. You're embarrassing me. I know how that is. I dig what you got going on. I like it.
Well, thank you.
I like it. So we're going to grab all the links from you, and we'll put this up on all our stuff and tie it in with your stuff, and then feel free to share it around as well.
For sure.
You know, you can put it on your page and everything else, and get the word out. And if anyone wants to lend a hand in delivering bread or
Providing supplies. I'm sure supplies are hard to come by right now.
One of the nice things about working at a
here,
grocery
pull the
store.
mic up to you. So
Sorry.
yeah,
One of the nice things about working at a grocery store is I do get the chance to,
Get the first come, first serve.
Yeah, so I'm doing okay right now.
Good.
But yeah, there's been a couple times that flour and yeast have gotten pretty tight.
It's out.
Yeah.
It's out in Costco. I mean, it's out.
Yeah.
Out. There's none.
Really?
I've looked.
Yeah. So I've got probably about at the moment probably about 35 pounds of flour and about 2.25 pounds of yeast.
and how many pounds of flour and yeast does it take to make a loaf? Or
to make one
actually
loaf,
make it by the bucket. So
Right. So haven't really thought about it by weight. But I know that last weekend I went through about 25 pounds of flour.
this 35 could theoretically just be gone on Saturday.
It could be pretty close to gone this weekend. Yeah.
Okay. So
Well,
yeah.
that will provide you all the yeast you will need if you grow it. So hopefully that'll alleviate at least that kind of a supply issue.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. I've also been looking into some other things. Some people have said, well, I haven't done it before, but I knew you could use beer to start bread
Wow.
because it's got
Sounds
yeast.
good.
Yeah.
Beer bread.
And somebody sent me an interesting thing about if you boil potatoes like you would for mashed potatoes and save the water,
Oh,
that'll have
really?
potato yeasts in it. So
That might be it might be interesting to play with the different
Yeah.
flavors you get out of that.
yeah, I'm
stuff.
definitely going to experiment with that a little bit.
Yeah, you'll have to. Just a thought, but maybe try making some more videos on here's how you make a starter yeast.
Yeah.
And or a starter. Do you call that a yeast or a dough or?
I call it a starter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's how you make a starter and everything else. Start a fun little thing where people make a start and then pass it to a friend for them to try.
Yeah, for sure.
Start a bread club.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I bet you it's pretty popular right now because all the flour and the yeast is sold out. So people have to be thinking about the process at least,
Yeah.
if not just hoarding the supplies.
I've got beer.
that we do on the happy hour.
I've got
Yeah.
a couple of them myself. So
Yeah. Yeah. I should have brought some out for the show. We could have nipped on them while we talked. But yeah, I like it. I like what you got going on. And if there's anything that we can put out for you, or if you got something new to come back on, just let us know.
sure will.
We'll have you back on in a heartbeat.
Sure will. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you, John.
joining us. Yeah. All right, everyone. Remember to go check out his Facebook page. If you have any support you want to offer, let him know. If you're in need or know someone who's in need, reach out. Reach out. We'll make this happen. Okay, and we're back. Dave, what'd you think?
Well, I will say this. I am impressed with the operation that John is performing in his own kitchen here in Tooele. Like I said before, he's being an outstanding citizen. And this is a time when we all just need to think about what can we do to give back. Tooele it's a very unique culture, I'll say that much. And there's a lot of positive things that can happen here. There's a lot of room for positivity. And people have the free time now, like John is doing. We all need to do something. We all need to stay positive and contribute. And I, for one, I'm touched. I'm pretty touched. I'm not an emotional guy, but that touches me.
I like it. I like where his head's going to. He's playing with different stuff, and he's doing it by hand. He didn't go buy a machine. He's grinding this stuff out by hand. He's working it.
He called it a bread bucket, I believe, right?
Yeah, bread bucket, and it's interesting. And you can go find this if you want to pursue this yourself. And then they're trying out different flavors. I personally would like to try a beer bread. I'd like to see how that tastes, and what type of beer works best, and do the flavors come through.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to try out some of the Black Plague bread that you gave him the starter for. Is that what's called, the start?
Right. Yeah. You buy it in an envelope. It comes in these little chips. And you got to rehydrate them and then feed them and grow them. It can take a few weeks to actually get a decent starter going.
Really?
Out of the original chip that you get.
And is that the yeast?
Yes. Yeast bacterias, they're all like dehydrated, dormant. And you just bring them back with some water and decent temperatures and they grow.
What do you feed them? Do you
I feed them more flour.
You feed them more flour?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a little pet.
Do they take your little jar of start for a walk?
Right.
Yeah. I like it. I'm excited, and I'm excited that we're working with him. I look forward to seeing what comes of this in the future, and what what he continues to make happen. I like that his whole family's involved.
I think what's going to fascinate me is, in the next few weeks, how is the community going to react as this goes deeper and deeper? Since he has access to the supply chain directly, hopefully he can maintain his supply chain and be efficient with it. But, okay, maybe he doesn't have enough flour one day. Will the community reach out and hook him up? Will people utilize the service? Will it grow? I'm actually interested in this kind of a community experiment to see where these little kind of homebrew scenarios can end up here in Tooele. Because watching all this made in China apocalypse event going down around me, I want to be more supportive of local, and I want to provide more for my community through my community than I do, say, maybe go to Walmart's and buy something made in China.
Yeah.
So if I can buy bread made in Tooele, or get bread in Tooele, or donate flour for bread, however that process would work, I would probably take that extra effort to keep it local.
Yeah, for sure. And if he needs any assistance, hopefully he reaches out to us, reaches out through his Facebook. If you're interested in it, interested in helping him, or if you know anyone who needs assistance, join his Facebook page. Look in the notes. Everything will be in there to guide you right to him.
And you know what? While we're on the topic of giving back to the community, I want to take about 2 minutes here to talk about some friends of mine, some very good, close friends that I'm really involved with. They run a 501c3 called the Liberland Aid Foundation, and they're just getting started this year. And so far, they've done things like provided laptops to an orphanage or school in Serbia. They've provided tons of aid to cyclone victims in Somaliland, and right now they're working on a campaign to raise $30,000 to do something kind of dangerous. What they want to do is they want to get supplies to Port-au-Prince, and then from Port-au-Prince drive them to a village within Haiti that's in need, and they want to help supply people that are of very unfortunate circumstances, and that's dangerous. I don't think I have to tell you about how something like that can go down. I've heard of aid trucks getting looted and pirated and flipped and just mobbed mentality type situations occurring that drivers get hurt or killed. So I want to give a little shout out to the Liberland Aid Foundation. They have their own Facebook page, but if you want to help provide for a 501c3, when you donate, you get your money. How does that work? You get to claim it on your taxes. So not only do you get to do something good for people in need, but you also get to claim that on your taxes for your refund on the following year.
Yeah, let's remember Haiti was ravaged year after year, and the officials in Haiti have dropped the ball on spreading the support around. They have acted like minor dictators in their own right. They've kept it for themselves. They haven't helped out the other people that need help.
And I don't think like a lot of foundations that go into Haiti provide 100% effort, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well,
the Clinton Foundation tried to do Haiti, and I heard that turned into a mess.
Did they try to do it?
Yeah. But I know this. These people.
Well, wasn't it a Haiti official was just let go because they opened up a warehouse and she had filled it with all the aid supplies and never released it.
And there's a lot of that goes on in Haiti. So that's one of the obstacles that the Liberland Aid Foundation is going through, is they have to find the perfect logistical path to deliver the aid most efficiently. And I can tell you this right now, every dollar that is donated to this, they're focusing on providing as much of that dollar value straight to the individuals in need. It is not like you're not going to see 80% administrative costs. I mean, I have hands-on involvement with this, so I can watch them perform their magic, and they work hard and they're very aggressive about it, and they want to promote a environment of volunteerism, and that's how they roll. So I just want to give props out to that group, and if people are looking to do something charitable, please just go to the Liberland Aid Foundation webpage on Facebook and check it out.
Link will be in the description down below.
I'll try to get us a commercial too. They got some propaganda videos out that they've been working on.
Yeah. So, and then we talked with our local Congressman Chris Stewart. I have kind of two questions in my head, and I'm sure Dave has a few, and just kind of let you fill us in, give us some information.
Okay. That'll be great. I do have a top of the hour call. Now, if we're in the middle of something, I can be late to that. I'm not the moderator on it. I'm just one of the guests. So, it's not like I'm going to drop dead at 6, but I'm glad to be with you and ready to jump in anytime you guys are. Dave, it's good to see you.
You too, buddy.
Yeah. Well, kind of one of my big questions is, what do you think the kind of the people fallout from this coronavirus is going to be? The numbers keep getting higher and higher. What's the projections that you've heard from, maybe greater minds than the ones that come across my table?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure I'm talking to greater minds, because if you've watched President Trump's press conferences, with Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and others, I mean, these are some of the best people in the country. And when you ask the question about what are the numbers, I think there's two numbers we need to consider. One of them is the number of people who are infected, obviously, who get sick, and ultimately who die. That's the primary concern we have. We also got to measure that against this reality that we have compelled people into what we fear is at least a deep recession, and maybe something even closer to a depression that we've seen before. We've got to keep those numbers in mind as well. It's impacted my own family. It's impacted almost everyone around me. I'm sure that you two feel the same way. I don't know if your families are friends, but I don't know any of us who doesn't know someone who has been laid off, who's lost their jobs. A terrifying thing for a lot of people, because unlike a month ago, if someone lost their job, they just say, well, that's fine. There's a strong economy. I can go get another job. People don't feel that way any longer. And we've got to be able to balance those two. But the first one has got to be protect our families, protect our communities, and try to defeat this virus by doing what most of us are doing. That's kind of staying home for a little bit.
That was my next question. What's the economic fallout from this? I'm still working my full-time job. I work out here at one of the salt plants, and we run through everything. I think salt kills diseases, whatever, and bleach needs to be made. But I'm seeing businesses shutter. I'm seeing people staying at home. You can feel the anxiety on social media. People are starting to get kind of a forced cabin fever, and I don't want to say that any of the local governments that are locking people in their houses are wrong, but it feels like it's going to compound any issue that we have with the coronavirus.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. You guys may know I've done a lot of work on suicide prevention over the last few years. I passed legislation to create the suicide prevention hotline number, a 3-digit national number. And so I know a little bit about this. And I know that 20% of suicides are associated with unemployment. Mm-hmm. And that's got to get our attention, because you're throwing literally millions of people out of work in a matter of a few days. I mean, it's really remarkable. On February 28th, we had the strongest job reports we've had in a long, long time. We had 330,000 new jobs, strongest economy in 60 years. And 2 weeks later, it dissolved underneath us. It was literally gone. And you have all these people who had no idea that they would lose their job, who have suddenly been tossed out of work. And that's why this rescue package we did was so important. And look, that's designed for small business, for farmers, for ranchers, for self-employed, for some big companies too. But it's really designed for the little people, and it's gonna help to bridge that. But there's no question we've got a real climb over the next month or so before we kind of peak on this. And then our first attention, as soon as we can, has got to be to rebuilding the economy, giving people back their job, giving people back their hope, so they can make their mortgage payments and pay for their kids, their clothes and the things that we all just depend on to live normal lives.
It does feel like a bad sci-fi movie right now. It feels like a zombie movie.
Chris, I want to ask a question about that particular subject. This stimulus package. I'm hearing rumors that this stimulus package could possibly affect next year's tax return. Can you clarify?
Yeah, that's not true. And I've had a lot of people asking me that. And it's too bad that that's kind of circulating, because it scares people. And they'll think, well, maybe I don't want to take the help then. My own sons are small business owners. And, that's the first thing, they ask, they need help, but they got to know what it's going to cost them. It's not true. It will have nada impact at all on someone's tax returns next year or the year after. This is simply the government trying to help people in the middle of a crisis. And Dave, you and I, we've known each other for years now, and I think we kind of understand each other's political thinkings. The debt scares the life out of me. I mean, We were already going to have $1 trillion debt. We've now added 2.2. And because of the slowdown in the economy, the receipts to the government are going to be even lower. We may be something approaching 3.5, or $4 trillion this year. I mean, that's an unbelievable number. You look, I get it. We had to do this, but we've got to come back to the debt immediately after.
I agree.
Where's this money coming from? Where's it being generated at?
Well, it's coming from debt. It's coming from borrowing. It's the same way we fund our normal annual deficit. Now, part of this, as I'm sure you guys know, because you guys both know and understand economics, there's two parts of this. One of them is this rescue package. It's monetary policy. It's issued by the treasuries and the federal government. But also you've got the Fed, who's just crushing liquidity into the market. And again, I get it. They have to do that. The banks have to have that capital so that they can loan that money out. But that's also a concern and one we're going to have to talk about. But look, we've got to put those... Sorry, I'm just saying you've got to put those concerns aside for right now. We've got to get through the next month or so. And but I do hope it motivates people to realize this is a real problem.
Do you think we'll see an inflation from this?
And how quick?
Oh, that is a great question, isn't it? Because again, Dave, you and I remember talking about quantitative easing back in 2012-13 when we thought, well, you know, what's this going to lead to? And most of the economic models said that it would lead to inflation. And I have a degree in economics. I don't really consider myself an economist, but I think I understand the basics of it. And I've talked to some of the smartest people in the country, you know, in years after that, going, why didn't we see inflation? And I've never really heard a good explanation. They talk about the velocity of money and, you know, capital flowing in from overseas. Yeah, that probably makes sense, but I really don't think we understand it. But that's a great point, is will this lead to inflation? I mean, we're doing it to stop a depression. It would be ironic if later on we ended up with a great deal of inflation because of it.
Yeah, and that's true. Our other stimulus measures that's been done through the last 20 years, they're measures it could be because a lot of our money is used overseas. So it's flowed outward of the country. But if it gets pulled in, say if a couple other national users pull out, that could leave it to come back home.
The other thing too is we've never seen before. And I mean, when I say we've never seen it, I mean, literally, we've never seen this before, where a globally economically interconnected world shut down virtually in a few weeks. And not just the United States, every other economy. Yeah. And I don't think there's an economic model anywhere that has been designed to predict what this will do as far as long-term economic repercussions, because every other nation is experiencing the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's made a projection of a disease and economics together, I guess.
Yeah. At least we're all going through this together. You know?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
One other big, before you continue on with the economic profile of this situation, is a lot of people are asking me, and I don't have an answer for them, this Chinese virus from Wuhan, is there a biolab there? Are they capable of developing such a toxic virus that can be disseminated and quietly saturate the population? Is this a possibility, or have we ruled that out?
Well, you know, it was one of the first things that we looked at, and sitting on the Intel committee early in January, we watched China's response to this, and it just raised all sorts of questions, right? All sorts of red flags, as I'm sure it did with you and your other, your viewers and listeners, because they were super aggressive against it, right? They within a week had locked down 51 million people, and you think, well, do they know something we don't know? Well, it turns out they did, because they were lying to us again and again and again. But one of the first things we asked was, well, is it possible that this was some genetically manipulated, or perhaps a bioweapon that they lost control of, or whatever may have happened? Our analysis at this point is that that's not true. Now, we know that there's a bio facility there, and it's not far from the wet market that we know was the epicenter of this. There's some speculation that they might have been doing some research on some of these viruses, and that they were, of course, using these bats, and some of those bats may have, somehow found their way into the market. And I don't think we know that yet. I tell you, we got to find out. If they're responsible for this in any way, we have to know that. Now, again, there's no evidence right now that this is genetically manipulated, But I think it's a fair question to ask, and especially in light of the fact that China hasn't been honest with us about a lot of things, and we just want to make sure they're being honest with us about this.
Yeah, that is a tough thing. We've grabbed onto a tiger's tail, dealing this much with a communist government for an economy, and I think that we're now finding out, because I mean, even when Russia was communist, they had a nuclear power plant meltdown and didn't tell anyone for weeks until other nations noticed the plume coming over their land.
Yeah, and not only other nations, they didn't tell their own people, as you know. I mean, they exposed, hundreds of thousands of their own people had no idea. And I want to just be clear on this, because I know that many will watch this, and I don't want to be, someone who says something recklessly. Again, I'm not saying that there's evidence that China did that. I'm just saying it's a fair question, and that's one we need to find out.
It is a fact that they kept it hidden while it was going on.
Absolutely.
Now that's a fact. China can't even say we didn't. We were honest with the rest of the world. We warned you ahead of time. They kept it hidden, and then they silenced anyone who talked about it.
Yes, and the World Health Organization was not helpful. I mean, they came in and backed China up, and they allowed their deception. And if we had known how contagious this was, if we had the information that they had, we would have had a different response to that. What they did really impacted our response, and it ended up costing people's lives.
It's the world over has hurt people.
Yeah. And the World Health Organization, they are very invested in China. So I tend to look at what they say and take it with a very big grain of salt. But the fact is, this virus is now out there, and whether or not they developed it as a biological weapon, we do have to realize that once it is out there, they can own it, and now they can petri dish this thing for future use too. Have we considered that as a nation?
Yeah, I mean, once again, if you talk to national security experts, the guys' intelligence, the people that I work with day to day, our job is to look at every possible explanation, to look at every contingency. Some of them are fairly extreme, but again, that's our job, is to ask those types of questions. And I'm sure there are people who are asking exactly that question, but I think the more focused that we've been for the last 6 weeks or so is, once again, how do we combat it? How do we help to control the spread? I think many of those will come up later on. Our primary focus right now really should be protecting American lives, protecting lives around the globe, and protecting the American economy.
Yeah, we got to recover from this zombie terrible movie that's fallen upon us. Yeah. And I'm nervous about this package this relief package that just signed. I'm nervous about inflation, but something granted, I don't want to talk bad about any of your fellow Congress ladies.
Hey. Okay.
I don't understand why they took this opportunity to pork that up. Something starts out with a simple idea, and then I'm sure there was wheeling and dealing on both sides that is going to be painful in the end. But it would have been nice if a straightforward package just once could be put on the floor and put through. Yeah.
No doubt about it. And look, Mitch McConnell did this right. He had 5 working groups. They were bipartisan. They had divided this bill up because it's the most complicated bill we will ever pass. I think it's the most complicated bill.
It's the most expensive bill any government in the history of all time has ever passed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's the most expensive. It's the most complicated. It's the broadest and deepest. It is an incredible piece of legislative, I don't want to say achievement, because that gives it more credit than maybe it's worth. But it is a very complicated bill, no doubt about it. But once again, Mitch McConnell did it right. He had these 5 working groups. They were bicameral, Republicans, Democrats, House and Senate. They had come to a consensus. They had an agreement on Saturday night. And Nancy Pelosi, who'd been out in California, comes riding into town and she goes, nope, That's not what we're going to do. And she plops her bill on the floor, which is 1,100 pages. They've clearly been working on it for weeks. I mean, they didn't write this thing over the weekend. They've been working on this for weeks. And she blew it up with some of this nonsense, including Green New Deal and funding for the arts and giving more power to unions. And I mean, the list goes on and on. I tell
Things
you
that
what, though.
would never pass on their own. Things that would never,
That's right.
never even be listened to on the floor. And she wants to earmark it onto something that has extreme importance. And then it sucks a whole bunch of money out of there. It just opens it back in there.
And it delayed it for 4 days. At a time when people really needed the help, it delayed it for 4 days. I tell you, I think she ended up the political loser on that because almost everything that she asked for, she did not get. Now, the president negotiating with her gave her money for the Kennedy Center. All right, so here's the argument. Hey, people are dying. Millions of people are losing their jobs. Let's get the Kennedy Center new leather seats. That's a very serious response, right? But that's essentially what Nancy Pelosi was arguing.
Is 150. She doesn't care about next year.
Yeah. So the president gave her that in order to get the package through, but she didn't get 99% of the outrageous things she was asking for. Now she's going to try again because, like you said, it's the only way she'll get it through. But we'll resist it. And she's going to lose on it again.
There's another one coming up here in a few weeks, another relief bill much along the same lines, isn't there?
Yeah, it's not going to be money like this. So, I mean, the real point of the second bill is to tweak the round 3, the one that we passed last Friday. We know that there's some deficiencies there. We know that, some organizations or some of the regulations are not clearly stated. It's really to kind of clean up this bill, to give us a little more time. For example, I was talking with some ranchers today and cattlemen, and they've got some real problems. And some of the language that addresses agriculture isn't really clear. We're going to have to go tweak that so that those individuals can get the help that they need. Now, the president wants to do a $2 trillion, infrastructure package. I could never support that. Not on top of this other that we just did. I think we at some point got to realize someone's got to pay for this. And, I'm hoping and my expectation is this isn't a boatload more money. It's more of a tweak of the other bill. But again, if it's a huge stimulus package like another $2 trillion, I and a lot of conservatives just are not going to be able to support it.
I'm afraid Nancy Pelosi's going to come riding in again with the rest of her package.
I'm sure she will.
But yeah, it's right now. I think we need to remain targeted on dealing with the virus and dealing with the effects of the virus on the populace, and we need to start figuring out how to deal with the economic issues that might roll down from that, and have a plan for that.
You're absolutely right. Go ahead, Dave.
And on top of what Jared is talking about, keeping everybody healthy, what about you in Congress as our representative? I've had someone ask me, David, can you ask this question? They want to know, can you guys vote remotely, or do you have to take a risk and move yourself physically there?
Yeah, well, what we're told is that we cannot vote remotely. There's a constitutional provision that says that Congress is a congregation and that we physically have to be there. I actually think that's right. I would support maybe
look each other in the eyes. It's about the human interaction on argument.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think we should be there. If this turns really south and it turns out we can't go back for a long time, we're going to have to do something, but I'm not there yet. I think we should continue to, stay hunkered down for a couple of weeks, take a look at it. But I think in every possible way, we should get Congress back there together if we can. Now, once again, realizing the world's unpredictable and this is a crazy situation we're in, we may be forced to consider that. But if we do, it's got to be limited and for a short amount of time and very definitive. This is only for this situation and defined as, after that, we go back to normal. But, look, it's good to be home. And I've actually been able to do an amazing amount of work. Like we're talking to you tonight. I mean, all day long, I'm on the phone. I'm doing conferences because there's so many people who need help. We can be effective at home, but at some point we do have to go back there and actually do the work that the American people expect us to do. And I just think we're better if we can do that in DC, but we got to wait and see how it develops before I think we decide that.
And I think you get the face to face where, we may be sending our congressman up and he's arguing against a congressman from Colorado. The face to face argument, I think, could always be more productive, at least in the status that we as humans are now.
Well, and you guys will forgive me for this. This is not overly partisan, but it's the way I feel, and that is, as long as Nancy Pelosi is the speaker, the less the House does, the better. So I'm kind of okay with being home for a while. Yeah.
I don't know.
I gotta end with something that Dave mentioned though, and that is, earlier on you said, hey, we're Americans, we'll get through this, and I don't want to sound Pollyannish or naive, but that's true. And to all the people that I've been talking with over the last few weeks, I remind them, we're going to get through this. I know this is hard. Again, I've seen it with my own sons, my own children, people around me. This is not easy for so many people. And it's everything from their employment and lives, how we're going to pay rent, to, hey, my father is sick, or my son is sick, or my daughter. I mean, there's plenty of fear to go around, but we will prevail on this. The American people are stepping up in really meaningful ways. I think the president has stepped forward in a meaningful way. This is tough, but it's not the demise of our nation. And it's because of good people like you guys and the people that are listening, that we work together, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I do know we have to let you go. You got another meeting, but thanks so much for coming on and giving us some clarity. And if there's any updates, you can just shoot us an email anytime you want to come on and put anything out.
We'll do that. It was fun. Let's come back. I'll come back and we'll talk again. Okay.
Let's come back after the recovery and high five each other.
We'll talk social.
Yeah. Oh,
socialism. Goodness. There we go. All right. Hey, thanks guys.
Thank you very much, Congressman.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of takeaways from that. And I'm nervous about this bill that was signed. I am nervous that the amount of money tossed into the economy. I'm nervous. Inflation scares me pretty bad. And I would like to ask him further questions, and hopefully in the future we can press him a little more on that. I do know that I'm not anti helping out the businesses, but I am worried about such a large bill signed in, and how does it get repaid? When does it get repaid? What kind of interest does it incur? And how does it get flushed into the market? 2.2 trillion flushed into the market is a pretty scary amount.
It's like 1% of the total debt. That's at least, the debt that they tell us about.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So it's scary. That's those are touching on severe inflation numbers. But we talked to him. I feel like he was very earnest with us.
Yeah, he's always been an honest guy. I've known him since the beginning of his political career. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you this. He's always been concerned about the debt. He's always been talking about like the revolving door issues. Very, very libertarian ideas that are close to me. So I've always supported him from the beginning. I'm glad he is where he is, and he's doing what he's doing. But I really think that America needs this stimulus right now myself. Plus, I invest myself in cryptocurrencies, so inflation doesn't scare me as much as most other people. I make money off of it. So,
yeah, but it scares me as a nation because inflation destroys retirements.
But also keep in mind this. This whole crisis is global. We're all going through it together.
Yeah.
So we inflate 1%, they inflate 1%.
Another thing that happens is, as of right now, if the United States has a hiccup, the world has a hiccup. But that is en route to changing. Moves have been made over the last 15 years that has moved us closer to being pushed to the back burner. I'm not going to argue whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think there's positives and negatives on both sides. It would be nice to see what it's like to take a step back from the empire and kind of become an existing nation on the world. But I may be wrong. I have limited outlook on this. I admit that.
I hope we create a world after we step back from said police master of the world. Because eventually, yeah, someone's going to fill in our boots right now and step up to this
we know
position.
who it's going to be.
I just hope we create a world where it's a world we would want to just be a regular spectator country. I hope we can provide an example to whoever will be next, and
Yeah, it makes you
maybe
wonder.
they'll take notice to it.
Makes you wonder if Great Britain had this conversation at the end of the 1800s.
I don't think
This very conversation.
I highly doubt it. I don't think anybody saw them stepping back as the world power. But
Oh, I think they saw it. I think they made a
Yeah.
conscious choice to do it.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, actually, there's writings about them making the conscious choice. They did it on purpose. They couldn't afford it.
Well,
Empires are
I-
expensive.
They couldn't afford it because if they didn't pay for it, then they wouldn't probably be Britain right now. I mean, us stepping up to the plate. I mean, historically, us stepping up to the plate back then, we had the high ground. I mean, we're oceans away from Germany and the war. We
Relieved
provided
them.
the support, and we benefited from it greatly.
Yeah, relieve them of the torch for sure. But anyways, we got sidetracked there. But this is I think it's an important conversation, but also an important continuing conversation. It needs to go further. And I've never met Chris Stewart before, but I personally like the guy. I like his earnestness. He didn't hide behind party lines when we asked him about the debt. He came right out and said it, and it's a scary thing, and I think it scares him as well. But yeah, so hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week.
Have a happy hour.